Welcome to Architects for Change, the podcast that bridges the gap between architecture, the built environment and politics. I'm Jay Morton, your host. I'm an architect and political geek, and together we'll hear from the change makers and thought leaders who are shaping the future of our cities and spaces. Our conversations will tackle pressing questions that hold the key to our future. How can we achieve a net zero future? What does it truly take to design a better world? And most importantly, how can politics play a pivotal role in breaking down the barriers that hinder progress? Okay, welcome Jonathan Smales to the Architects for Change podcast. You have actually been you were on the original list when I set up the podcast, because the whole point of the podcast is about talking to people who are making change in the built environment in some form. Yeah. And I would say that is definitely you, someone who's pushing the boundaries and trying to do something different, seeing barriers and overcoming them, and basically trying to show how we can be building better. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you went from being from Greenpeace to actually becoming a property developer?
Yeah,
and what drives you as well?
Curious proposition, isn't it? Whether, how one does that.
Yeah.
I think when I was in Greenpeace, we were growing very quickly. It was a very hot time for the environmental movement. And we were just bored of moving office the whole time, so I commissioned DGW and Deloitte to do an option appraisal of what if we bought a building. And I also wanted that project to help us think about how we could change the organisation to make it more collaborative rather than just single issue campaigning without losing that. And ended up hiring 2 architectural students from, I think they were at the Bartlett, gave them a bicycle, and sent them around North London. And we bought this building, which was an animal testing laboratory. And it was the first green refurb project in the UK, I think. Peter Clegg, Patrick Bellew, Neil Thomas, amazing team.
Yeah.
So if you get the privilege of working with a team like that, it's pretty infectious. So I just love the whole tangibility of doing a building. When you're in Greenpeace, essentially it's about cultural change, long-term change. You get a few very specific victories, like stopping the dumping of radioactive waste in the Irish Sea or burning of toxic chemicals in the North Sea, Montreal Protocol. I mean, there's a long list actually of successes, but the instant gratification isn't really available. One of the great things, or it's quite ironic now when I think about it in relation to how challenging it is to get a big place built.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about instant gratification of the built environment, but maybe not.
I was going to say, as an architect, I rarely get instant gratification.
Yeah, well, there we are. Yeah, so I just fell in love with the whole. Just the enjoyment of working with really good designers and making places that people could experience. And at university I'd studied geography, and I was not the kind of guy that would climb a glacier. I was much more Jane Jacobs, David Harvey, social justice in the city, Lewes Mumford. That was my thing. So the idea of combining my first love, which was sort of cities, urban design, history of place, human culture, and environmentalism, just felt like a great thing to do. So here we are, 37 years later, as a developer of sorts. But we like to believe that this is our campaign. It is our campaign, that we're using place and thinking about what place is from almost every angle, in terms of what is a place made of, how do you move around, what's the energy system, where does the food that comes into a place come from. All of those are levers of change that if you can pull those levers together, you effectively have got a transformation. You've got system change at the local level. And if, like me, from Greenpeace days, you felt that we needed system change, that you couldn't just deal with environmental problems.
Yeah.
Like, they're actually not environmental problems, they're human problems.
Yeah.
And it's the environment, we experience the problem in the environment, and it kicks back on us on any number of levels. But that, placemaking just has that capacity for fantastic conversations with people in a really definitive and quite celebratory way.
So is this also
and that's the new thing.
So is this also about creating almost like the infrastructure to live more sustainably? In a way.
It absolutely is. So there's a bit of the sustainability movement that's a bit preachy. You know, it's a bit like, you must, be a vegetarian. You must
take things
cycle.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit, one of the things I always say, anyone that's listened to me on a podcast before, well, is so bored of me saying this, but you listen to the worldview of people that promote sustainability, and it can seem like it's all living in a cave with the TV switched off.
Yeah.
But actually, what if we got to live in beautiful neighbourhoods?
Yeah.
In lovely apartments, and we could walk, and our children could play in the streets, and you knew where your food came from, and you met your neighbours. Just what an agent of change that could be if we tune it up well.
So what it can bring, not what it takes away, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, without diluting the radicalism, though, because without which we don't have anything. There's no purpose to real estate unless it achieves those radical outcomes. Otherwise, it's just a business, I think.
Because I suppose, talking about environmentalism, there is quite a lot of in the sort of environmental space of not building, and obviously, I mean, it's quite an amazing achievement. We're sitting here on the site of the Phoenix, that you've got planning in a national park, but actually maybe showing that can do something different.
Yeah, well, I think as environmentalists, particularly in the 80s and 90s, but the strain of it is still manifest today. It's about saying no, because palpably lots of very bad things happening in the world. So your first instinct is to stop those bad things. But what is it that we say yes to? Because we need a major transformation in our infrastructure, in our housing, in our economy, to switch it to an intrinsically sustainable way of doing things. That's a lot of change. So you can't just say no. You've got to start going, okay, if we buy that worldview, how do we remake the world and the infrastructures to be inclusive and joyous and carbon regenerative and nature regenerative? What an agenda. I mean, is there anything more exciting to work on than that? I don't think there is.
Yeah. So maybe like unpicking the Phoenix a little bit and sort of getting to understand that a little bit more. So it's set to be one of the UK's most sustainable neighbourhoods. What exactly, I mean, what sort of key things that makes it different to other bog standard developments?
Well, one of the things that we often, when we reflect on it, is that there isn't one thing here that hasn't been done really well somewhere else. I think what's maybe particular about it, quite apart from the sort of magnificence of the site and the town and the South Downs that host it, is the way that one combines those elements together in a place. And I think that's what's quite unusual. So urbanism, a certain quality of urban design, 12 architects working on it. So you get, it's like having an incredible fab lab of creativity to draw upon. The streets, the corners, the details, the public space, the heat and power systems, the transport, all the way through to food strategy, like literally how much food can you grow in an urban place sensibly. You're not trying to be self-sufficient, but trying to remind people of the connection between urban environments and natural environments and the food economy. And so I think it's the intensity of placemaking here, of rather grandly, on the one hand, curating those elements, but also being very practical with really good engineers and building economists and cost consultants in how you land that in practice rather than it be a utopian idea. Because it's so easy to think of these places as being utopian, but actually the urbanism here is very traditional in a way. It's just that's what we stopped doing about 100 years ago.
But also you are actually providing more homes on the site than, remind me, Berkeley were going to buy the site before, and actually you've made it, and it wasn't viable, and you've actually made it viable with sort of clever thinking and more design and innovative.
Yeah, I mean, not quite. So the two previous developers, the latter got planning consent for a scheme which was unpopular with a lot of people in the town and arguably wasn't very sustainable. But clearly, a town like this needs houses. It needs places for young people to live. They're priced out. The population is aging. The economy needs refreshing. Even historic places, they need that dynamism. So you've got a massive, classic brownfield site right on the edge of the town centre. It's kind of sitting there going, someone's got to do something with me.
Yeah.
So people have had a go, and they, the last one, you could show on a whiteboard in 5 minutes why it almost could never work economically. So one of the things we knew from the very beginning was that an economic imperative was that there would have to be more homes on here, but also, with that as an imperative, it's also just happened to dovetail really well with the way we approach urbanism, and the densities here are no higher than the historic centre of Lewes.
Yeah.
And so Alex Ely did a study when he was at CABE looking at average densities in different urban conditions, from historic town infill to new settlements to all of that. And this is at the lower end of historic infill. So we've ended up with 60% more units than there were before, and probably higher value, which can sound a bit counterintuitive. Because of the quality of the architecture and the materials and the place, which is a good outcome. You've still got viability questions because of the classic brownfield conditions and the flood defences.
Yes, because we're right on a river edge.
We've got a river that floods, that's tidal and floods, and will potentially flood more in future, albeit the Environment Agency have been doing a great job actually in the catchments of increasing the capacity of the catchment to absorb floodwaters. But nonetheless, Expedition, our engineers, have had to design to defend against riverine flooding and pluvial runoff from the downs and the town to here. So we've got Danish-style rain gardens, and we've got a flood wall. So and then you've got a massive community ask of this project. And so the interesting thing here is that it's the sustainability, the urbanism and the architecture that makes it viable, because the other things all conspire to make it really challenging in economic terms. So if we weren't able to construct a really credible and, we think, lovely place, then it wouldn't ever get developed.
And there's going to be other elements that benefit the wider community as well. So we've had a walk around, and we were saying that it's going to improve biodiversity, but also in public realm as well.
Yeah, and
green
beyond
space.
that. So, there's going to be the district's health hub is going to be here, all the GPs, and, with the government's new commitment to community primary health care, the centrepiece of that will be on this site, which this project, by the way, has to pay for and build, design and build. There's a new bridge to connect to part of Lewes to the historic part. Flood defences which protect part of the existing housing on the edge of the site. There's the jobs, so 330 permanent jobs, extra council tax. There's the potential for a new green construction cluster here.
Oh, amazing.
Because of the scale of the commitment to bio-based materials mean that it becomes a natural focal point for that. And of course, Sussex has lots of timber. Linking that into, fancy word, but bioregion in terms of exploiting what the area has to build a place is also something that has potential for economic renewal and a new, more productive economy. Because we've got this growth agenda, and on the one hand you kind of go, yeah, I get it, But we know that mainstream growth literally kills all the things that we love
Yes.
and will kill us,
Yeah.
frankly. Let's
Yeah.
just be clear about it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real debate about that, frankly. We have no carbon budget left, so
Yeah.
we have to do things in a different way. But what if doing those things in a different way was the kind of fillip, the dynamic that helps us to create a more productive economy and a more inclusive economy, because we think it can and does.
I mean, I think this is what's quite important with what you're doing, because that building things, I mean, construction industry is 38% of our carbon emissions. So building things it's one of the worst in globally in terms of carbon emissions. So it's almost like you're taking that head on and sort of showing how we can do it in another way. And like you said, we've got the 1.5 million home agenda that will burn through our carbon allowance. Just if we only built up those homes and didn't do anything else.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I was told by a building physicist that if Oxfordshire hits its housing targets by building in the normal way through primarily volume house builders, that's the entire carbon budget of the county right there, just on that one act.
Yeah.
So.
And that's if no other business did anything else.
Yeah.
If everyone switched off.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is clearly not going to happen.
Yeah.
Second, you've got, so embodied carbon is huge. We
Yeah.
would say it's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 1 is actually cars.
Well.
So 24% of our carbon footprint on average is transport. 60% of that is private transport. So here, if you're in a town centre, it just is crystal clear that we've got to design a walkable place and that's easy to cycle, and you've got to have attractive streets that make it safe to walk and cycle, because you can tell people to do it, but if it's unsafe or boring or the distances are too far, they just won't.
If you're stuck at traffic lights for hours trying to cross the road.
Yeah, so you've got to look at the whole project from that point of view.
Yeah.
So, for instance, with Labour's commitment to 1.5 million homes, a lot of those are going to be built out of town.
Yeah, yeah.
And they better be compact, relatively dense, walkable places with an economy there. Otherwise, how on earth do we justify them?
I mean, there is a big concern that it is going to be just tarmac, the same repetitive house that's got no sense of place, and it's going to be about numbers, when instead it could be an opportunity to do something exciting, to boost the economy and do something innovative.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely, and I think there's a massive dialectic about this, isn't there, which is very political. So you've got people in government that are going, build, with cranes and everything. And then you've got people who are going, no, don't build, you're destroying nature, the whole climate thing. This is my point about what do we say yes to.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to say, and we published a paper called How Shall We Live, which is all about this. How can you plan, design, build new places that have an economy, that are in carbon regenerative materials and where people are not car dependent, and you can do it affordably and generate and stimulate the economy in a sustainable way rather than in an unsustainable way. Yeah. And it's almost as if no one's talking about that.
Yeah.
And I know lots of architects are, forgive me, I don't mean to be, lots of...
We're trying.
There are lots of, and it's true, you are, and it's very impressive and exciting. I wonder if we talk to ourselves too much.
Yes.
Because it feels to me that there's no centre to the political debate around this. There's a lot of people going like this, like, I'm not listening because I just want to get the numbers. Yeah. As if, we'll never do it unless if we think that, naive, idealistic people like human nature are going to hit these targets, then we're fools. Not true at all. People like us and other SMEs can scale up really quickly, and the industry could scale up. It would be slower to start and then quicker. It would pick up speed later, and we'd get the places we want. We'd get a new economy, and we wouldn't be destroying Britain. Sorry to be melodramatic, but I think
I like what you were saying when we were having a walk around, that it's about creating habitats and human habitats, which actually, I remember I taught at the London School of Architecture. I did one of the think tanks there, and we gave them the topic of habitat, and we were at Aldersgate near the London Wall to sort of see if it was, to sort of almost pretend like that they're doing like a habitat study, and they came up with the conclusion it wasn't a habitat. Because there was no nature, there was actually not really any food, there wasn't anywhere to access. They were just saying it wasn't actually it wasn't a diverse community.
No.
So actually, if you looked at the definition of a habitat, they said it wasn't a habitat. And then how do we actually make this sort of central urban location a habitat? And I think we've got a lot of places like that actually they don't enable you to sort of thrive in the best possible way. They're not healthy places.
No.
To live.
Well, urbanism is like a complex ecosystem. If it isn't a complex ecosystem, it's not actually urban, it's something else. It's ersatz. It's a monoculture, and I know that's a cliche when we think about housing estates, but that's what they are. Where people are obliged to drive, they hardly ever meet their neighbours. Very difficult to get public transport there because it's too expensive to take buses down these kind of wiggly worm cul-de-sacs. And again, I realise I'm slightly caricaturing to make the point, but not that much.
No, we can picture all the places that you're talking about.
And if it's not that, it's tending to be now 15 to 20 story BTR blocks in London. If you go out on the train west out of London now, and you see this kind of serried ranks of cookie cutter tower blocks, densely packing people into single aspect apartments. And London can sort of take it because it's got a lot of the infrastructure,
it's got other stuff.
So the quality of life in those, you just have to have a question mark over it. Whereas, slightly shifting topic a bit, but if you think about 5 to 7 stories as an urban ideal, like a Copenhagen, for instance, or central Amsterdam, you're getting human scale, you're getting the density that you need, and you're getting much higher quality apartments to live in and better streets. And we know all that, and that's what people are taught and planners are introduced to. Do we do it in practice? Hardly at all, ever.
And what's it also in the sort of planning political sense, that is a sort of scale that whatever side of the political spectrum you are, that everyone seems to be quite happy with as well.
Yeah,
so
no,
people,
for sure.
I think it is because it's that like human relatable scale.
Well, again, loads is written about it. It's almost like, please someone read a book about this stuff, because the literature's in, the evidence is in, and whoever you go with to one of these successful urban places, there's a sort of, I would call it, might call it a kind of obvious beauty. It doesn't matter what your taste is, there's something reassuring and settling about it, this kind of good density, as opposed to the sort of slightly random stuff which we have, which you're like, I see what they're trying to do there, but it's all too site-specific. There aren't enough urban rules around what would make a place really successful.
There's also like pushing distances. Like we have the like 22-metre rule, which is quite blanket, whereas I remember being in Lisbon and on the little road with the vehicular on it, and then there's a guy barbecuing out his balcony in his pants, and he's literally 2 metres away, and we're like, hi, nice, and have a nice, but it's actually
nice pants.
Nice pants. But it's totally, but actually it's like that, you have that communication with that person. You don't care that they're only 3 metres away or less, or 2 metres away. It's not an issue. It's actually creates, it's quite exciting.
Bioclimatic reasons for it having been built like that. Of
Yes,
course,
exactly.
They needed the shade now.
Yeah.
So we love historic towns, right? Do we build anything that looks remotely like a historic town today? No.
No, because the planners say 22 metres.
Yeah, exactly. So, and things like rights to light.
Yeah.
Well, the Japanese love shade.
Yeah.
So these kind of, although I talked about urban rules, I think we've got to work with talented designers to get that intensity in urban places that frees up space for brilliant public realm and for green space. And also will house more people well, and I would say creates the possibility of more social cohesion just because of those simple, informal social contacts that you have in a place like that you wouldn't in a place that was designed very differently. So, the whole idea, do places matter? Do they affect how we think and behave? Do they change culture? And I'm like, of course they fucking do. But a lot of people go, oh no, that's social engineering. What, so volume house builder estate isn't social engineering?
Well, in the opposite
But somehow
way.
if you've got ideas about what urbanism should be, it is.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we need some social engineering because we have a lot of poverty, we have a lot of loneliness, we have bad public health,
Yeah.
we've got an unproductive economy, and we're damaging the climate and nature.
Yeah. So something's
maybe
got
we
to
do
change.
need to engineer something.
Yeah, yeah, but in the right direction. And I think it's I mean, for me as an architect, it's positive to see that this is a place that actually is being designed by architects, because actually we know there's a large proportion of our homes in the UK and buildings in the UK don't have any architectural input at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, would you say that, I suppose that's quite important to have that more thinking, a really good team to sort of create something a bit more innovative?
Yeah, I wouldn't put most of the credit with architects. I know, actually, I think this is genuinely transdisciplinary here. So I think the exciting stuff is in the interconnectedness of the different disciplines, from urban design and the study of the context and view corridors and flood engineering, old buildings, and what one does with historic structures, or even if they're not particularly, precious in a sense, they still have a memory of what the place was before. Plus, then you've got your what works for the things we've been talking about in terms of, a bit grandly, but rebuilding society at the local level. What are we making the buildings from? Where are those materials coming from? You've got to put that into the masher and navigate your way through that to create, nonetheless, a place that is recognisably something that humans would enjoy. And so architecture is a really important part, but it's only a part.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of wider team. On the topic of materials, as you've mentioned, and actually we can see lots of samples, and you're working extensively, out of bio-based materials and building out of timber, hempcrete. What are the challenges that you are facing, and also what needs to shift in the wider sphere to make these materials used in more developments?
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of a Damascene conversion for me personally. I know it seems like an obvious point in the way that we were articulating it earlier, about climate and embodied carbon. And I was very mindful of that, but I hadn't realised just the quality of alternative that exists. And so I'd slightly put it to one side in my mind. And then we had a timber summit here. Yeah. Because we have a guy who's got a great title, Head of Sustainable Construction, and Andy Tugby, wonderful human being, is a carpenter by trade. And he had got a big network of people who are making wonderful things, and actually quite a lot of them around Lewes. And then Oliver Lowenstein, Fourth Door Review, a great champion of natural buildings. And then we've got Flimwell nearby, and Sussex is full of very beautiful woodland and a bit of a forestry industry, not that. And so Andy brought them together with people like Built by Nature and, Whitby Wood and insurance companies, and we had a 2-day summit here.
Oh, the insurance companies.
Yeah, well,
very important.
Critical. And they worked out over that 2-day period that it was possible to do this in bio-based materials. Yeah. And that we could do it affordably. They both inspired us, but also pointed the way forward practically, and we've been done a lot of kind of scurrying to catch up with that idea, and are always pleasantly surprised by what we're finding in terms of the capability of the industry. So we've come, people like Urban who've built 350 CLT buildings in this country. Yeah. Incredible, right? And you meet them and they're, fantastic engineers and builders. Yeah. They're almost like master builders. It's a wonderful thing. And then BEST in Glasgow, BEST. There's 40 of them, and most of them are obsessed with supply chains and how you build affordably out of natural materials, and particularly Scottish timber. And so, and any number of, we've got local work studio, we've got Duncan Baker Brown locally, so looking at salvage materials, what he calls mining the Anthropocene. Yes, yeah. And so the issue is, how do you do that affordably, economically, safely, in ways that persuade insurers and mortgage providers? and reassure your customers as if Grenfell was a timber building.
Yes,
And so, the interesting thing is insurers will insure timber residential buildings in France, Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, but not so much here. And you go, well, why is that? Because you're the same company.
Yeah, why is that?
So, and the reason is that sadly, they'll say privately that they don't trust the British construction process to deliver the rigour and the quality, and so their challenge to us
is it a bit of a sort of chicken and egg as well, because we don't do it enough, but then they're not skilled enough.
Role for government has to take it on as a challenge and go, we're going to de-risk this, we're going to scale up the industry, we're going to have a series of Pathfinder projects to do the innovation in practice. People think innovation is having a nice idea. Innovation is having a nice idea and putting it into practice and learning really quickly about how to replicate and scale, and that's what this project is partly about. However, I don't want to sell it to customers on the basis that we're experimenting, so the rigour here with the engineers and the timber and the manufacturing systems. So, you know, the deal we have with our insurance broker is that we'll audit, firstly hire real experts every step of the way, and then audit the process all the way through. We call it build and design.
Yes, okay.
Inverting design and build into working out, as we're designing, how we're going to build in standardised, proven components so that we get an affordable, high-performance, long-life, loose-fit building within our cost envelope with elements that we can replicate and scale up.
Yeah.
Here and on other projects, because we're trying to use this project to help bridge between, wouldn't it be nice if we built in bio-based materials, to actually all new neighbourhoods should be built in bio-based materials.
Particularly because everything, particularly in these out of city centres where the heights actually allow that as well, because we're all below 5 stories or 4 stories here, aren't we? Which then means that we're allowed to build.
Well, so I would say, again, coming back to the earlier point, that city centres could do it as well, because I think 5 stories is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Now, we can't do that in neoliberal Britain because, you know, we basically have divided the country up into plots that are then auctioned by agents for sale to the highest bidder. So the regulation isn't strong enough to stop it. So if you're buying a plot in London, you're going to go to 40 stories if you can. Albeit building high now with the cores and building safety acts is.
But this is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if actually we are going to see more mid-rise for that reason, that actually people just want to get their sites off the ground and the delays at Building Safety Act.
Well, so the only people that can make that happen quickly is government. Yeah. Through regulation, which will then drive the price down of the land in the first place. And we all know that needs to happen anyway. But no individual landowner is going to do that, or no individual agent is ever going to do that. And if I want to beat Berkeley to a site, I'm always looking to how I can pay more than they can. So, you know, they're a good outfit, clearly. There are other people that are much less good that beat us to sites. We've just beaten in one in West London that I can't name. But I know that they'll build cheaply.
That must be incredibly frustrating, because it's not a fair
fight,
is it? I think this is the thing, particularly with sustainability and quality of place. With anything, there isn't economically still doing the wrong thing. Not all the time, but can make more money than doing the right thing, which I think is is where legislation, I think, or maybe I don't know if you agree with where legislation needs to come in to sort of actually balance it a little bit, because otherwise we're always going to have the lowest common denominator.
Balance it completely. I mean, turn it the other way, of course. I mean, if you're serious in growing a green economy, by which I don't mean a marginal economy, I mean transforming the economy to be more economically productive, inclusive, appealing for people to participate in it, change away from welfareism into much more dynamic modern economy. If we're serious about that, then we should be doing that. And it's not just the economics of the individual development, it's the total economics, it's the externalities, as economists would say. So someone's going to pay for it in climate change, someone's going to pay for it in terms of lack of social cohesion, poverty, crime, you know, schooling, social work, police. You know, the whole economics of the absence of community or place are phenomenal. So it comes back on the state in the end. And that's the whole missing bit in our politics right now, is we're we don't have a transformative model, we have a managerial model, sorry about the cliche, where we're kind of going, if only we could do that a little bit better or get a bit more money that we can put into welfare or this. The advantage of place and the new industries that it can help give rise to is you'll need less of that. It'll be much more efficient at doing good things rather than more efficient at doing not so good things, which is what productivity is too often seen as.
And bad places actually make low productivity because it's bad health and I guess this is also I think you've mentioned before, like the opportunity for the UK economy in terms of actually having a more technological construction industry, because at the moment we are still building in the same way that we have before, and we've got the whole sort of tech revolution, but they don't seem to be talking about construction in the same in the same sort of sphere as they're talking about AI and everything else.
Yeah, so the sort of reviews are mixed, but I'm quite a fan of Ezra Klein's book Abundance. This whole idea that we do need to grow, but in a different way, because we're trying to remake the world. We really are. We have to, and so we better get organised and mobilised in order to do that. And this is one of the ways that we can do it, is to, on the one hand, agree some limits. That's no longer feasible. These are the things that we're going to encourage. And we're really ingenious. You know, the City of London is ingenious if it's given the right brief. The design industries in Britain are ingenious given the right brief. Money, design, let's bring that into government, into its enabling role, rather than it just being a regulating role. Good result. Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like the right thing to do. So as we're saying, Phoenix is basically a prototype for these ideas. How do you scale up? What do we need to do, or what do you need to do?
We've got to build it first. It's just
that's true.
You know, nearly got signed Section 106, but not quite. So the planning system has to tune into this much more. We've got to get better at presenting it in a way that is easier for people to comprehend and buy into. And we've got to get Homes England fully on board with this, because they clearly have the resources to enable this stuff to happen. But one of the things that's happening here now, of course, is that, you know, a lot of local authorities are now coming to us. They're kind of going, we like this Phoenix thing. We like the look of it. We like what it's trying to do. Could you do it here?
Oh, that's good.
And so, really. And, you know, legacy landowners, local authorities, very senior people in government, and in Scotland, by the way, but in particular, actually, interestingly, because up in Scotland, just as a bit of a digression, but billions invested in renewable energy, billions invested in natural capital, and the planning system has had a recent pivot towards place.
Right.
It's like the purpose, and the Scottish Investment Bank has a head of place. So, and now they're going, are we any good at it though? So how do we make places now rather than development? We're not doing that yet here. There's a lot of talk, but really, are we doing that? And I don't think we are.
Why are we not doing it here, do you think?
Well, because it's this fearfulness that it can't be scaled quickly. But it'd be nice if people came to ask how it might be, rather than just assume that it can't. And that's not being asked enough. So, for instance, we're forever asked to go and talk on panels and stuff. But, you know, government, it all just sounds ridiculously pompous and arrogant, doesn't it? But they should be here with our network, going, how do we scale this stuff? How do we do it? You know,
seeking out who are doing innovative things, which actually, going back to Peter Carr, that's what he's doing with AI. So what we need someone doing that for construction.
And so there are loads of initiatives. What there isn't is a systemic shift. So if you're going to build 1.5 million homes, which probably we will at some point,
hopefully,
whether or not it's in 4 years, but that's not the topic of today. But let's gear up to do it properly, because once they're there, they're indelible, right? It's not so much the houses being indelible. I wish they were, but they're not. They're built for 60-year life or whatever. God help us in terms of the whole life economics of a modern house, by the way.
Yeah.
But the roads, the streets, and a lot of the infrastructure is indelible, so you won't be doing it again. So you better get it right, and we're not getting it right.
Yeah.
And so, and so, why isn't it scaling up? It's because the Treasury and public policy making at all levels hasn't understood the capability to shift quickly, and is not asking the right questions, I would say. So projects like this are important, but it's tiny really in the overall scheme of things. And there's a lot of kind of it's all a bit utopian and everything, but maybe it is. But isn't it what we should be doing?
Yeah.
Therefore, the question is not, oh, it's utopian, it can never happen. It's how do we combine our resources and energies to make it happen, learn from it, replicate, scale, and use it as a new template for the way we make it. Because, as I said, none of this as a place is new, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is taken from books and other cities and places. Almost everything on this project, I could show you exactly where it comes from in terms of a precedent.
So it's like taking good practice and bringing it into one place. And I guess it's also, I suppose, like the approach that you've actually done for the Phoenix itself, like with going car free. What are the barriers to that? We're in a more rural, we're next to a town, but if you want to go beyond Lewes, how do you do that? Some people will need a car, you have a car share. So I suppose it's on a bigger scale, maybe, as a society, we need to see what the wider barriers are to scaling something like this up, and then dealing with them innovatively rather than just putting them in the too difficult to deal with box. Maybe we're not good enough at doing that, at working out solutions.
And again, coming back to Ezra Klein and co., productivity is not doing the same things better, it's doing better things.
Yes.
And we're not doing better things.
Not work harder, work smarter.
And so we won't grow our economy, maybe even at all, let alone in a sustainable way, unless we learn to do better things. And I think this government really has to see that very quickly in the built environment space. And it's not that there aren't great people doing great things. I don't mean it to personalise it or anything. And there's nothing wrong with this government. I think it's great in many ways in terms of its instincts of what it wants to do. But it's got this kind of weird intrinsic commitment to the existing industry.
Yes.
When actually it needs to scale up a whole new economy, I would say. I think it's as grand as that. And until our leaders see that and invest, it doesn't even cost more. I don't mean that. It just means you have to change the regulatory frameworks and make sure that you're putting the money into the right sorts of places.
You kind of shift the market through regulation.
Yeah.
So maybe, almost like summarising that, what would, maybe if you could sort of name 2 or 3 things that could happen quite quickly, would you like to see government do? Is that quite a putting you on the spot question?
Well, I would change the rules on embodied carbon overnight.
Yeah.
Because watchers innovate when you do that, because we have to build.
Yeah.
And everyone will go. So I remember in Greenpeace when we were running the CFC campaign, which, by the way, is probably the most successful environmental campaign ever run. So in a year, CFCs were banned globally.
Yeah, and that's actually huge,
That's
isn't it?
astonishing. Yeah. So I remember at the time, all the big chemical companies, Dow Chemical, ICI, DuPont, they were saying to Greenpeace, you're going to destroy the economy.
No one will have a fridge.
Yeah, literally. Well, so I forget which one it was. I think one of them said Greenpeace will bring bubonic plague back to Europe. and we were like, no, I'm sure, there'll be an alternative really quickly. We didn't know what it was. Yeah. And of course there is, and there was, because we're ingenious. Yeah. But sometimes you've just got to say, that's terrible. We can't do that anymore, because we're literally destroying the ozone layer. And by the way, global heating might be 2 degrees higher had we not taken that action in 1987. Just think of it like that. Yeah. Quite apart from all the other health and ecological impacts of that. So we're at that stage here. We just have to say, we're not doing that anymore. We are now going to do this. Yeah. And watch the financial sector innovate. Watch them. All those ESG policies. They'll actually mean something. We can make those work now. Yeah. I can't remember the name. I remember quite a couple of years ago, it was a guy from Oxford University saying that about if you started charging, you're using the example of petrochemical industry. If you
charge them to take their own waste away, which if I dump waste on the street, I have to pay Lewisham Council to come and take it away.
Funny that,
but if I'm a Shell or whatever, and I'm dumping carbon into the atmosphere, which is basically waste, I don't have to pay to take it, to take it away. And he was saying if you actually started to actually bring in that, then you watch them innovate pretty bloody quickly, and it would happen much quicker. Which I think like you say, we are at that point. And I've always said for construction, look at what we did with the vaccine task force. We should have something similar. In terms of construction.
So you've done number 2. I've done embodied carbon. You've done the mentality, the mindset, the shift to doing something urgently and transformative. And I think in Britain we're ready for it, because I think that people are really dissatisfied with the same or rather jaded language and trying to fix little things in little ways. There's got to be something that's really quite strong, I think. So that would be number 2.
Maybe something we can get excited about. Like this is a new industry. And new jobs and new tech, and we're leading the way.
So but we abandoned that agenda because we're worried that Nigel Farage will tell us we're deindustrialising. What if we're actually reindustrialising? Frankly. In a way that will create more jobs, and it's really, very clear that it would. What would be the third? The third would be basically walkable neighbourhoods. We have to deal with the highways problem, and the way that we're obliged to design for car parking. So what's the first rule of master planning? Is get your car parking sorted out. It is though, and it's like, we're dealing with bodies that are 50 years out of date. Even their own policies don't say that they should be doing things differently, but they don't seem to be able to. And so, and yet the evidence of things like controlled parking zones and so on in London is that people really protest about them in the beginning, but in the end they really, really come to like them. And there's that whole theory of change, isn't there? Whereas where we've got people who are insecure because we've made them insecure in terms of poverty or housing or employment or whatever it might be, that society allows that to be the case, they become very conservative because they're clinging on to what they already have, because they don't trust anyone to do anything better. We have to demonstrate in practice that it's going to be better. And so, can I have a fourth then?
Have a fourth.
Let's get rid of affordable housing.
Oh, okay.
And not from a Patrick Schumacher point of view. But why is it called affordable or social housing? Let's just have housing and let's find new ways to finance it. And people like us and our mates and network can build it really affordably.
So you mean there will be affordable housing, but just don't have some... Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's just have housing. Right, and I'm not sure that we should be... we need to subsidise it at all. I think we just need to take it off land values and some of the externality costs, change the way we finance housing, which I think pension funds are up for, if we de-risk the planning process and the development process by getting more pattern books and more obvious government commitment to the innovation that will help them to invest over the long term. Put that together and you've got just housing. Who wants to say, I am moving into my social house? I'm on welfare, or so I can't afford a house.
What's your view on this, on the government building their own homes? Or you'd say that yes, but just housing, not necessarily social housing, or having different rates.
I've got like a natural pull towards it and a real worry about it. Which is that we've degraded our capability in government so much that I'm not sure we could now. I think it would take a long time, but public-private partnerships are the way forward. So it's people like us, pension funds and local authorities coming together with our supply chains and great designers and going, we'll form a kind of consortium, we'll agree what a reasonable return is for the pension funds money, Homes England are in there somewhere, and we will solve these problems together.
And then you're saying by building, I suppose by increasing densities, pattern book approach, being able to roll out more homes, they will actually be at a price point that local people can afford.
Yeah, you're doing this much better than me.
Is that what we're saying?
I should be interviewing you.
Well, no, I'm just trying to sort of summarize, because obviously
no, thank you.
it's quite a statement, no affordable housing, but so that you think that is possible, that by building more, the cost will go down.
Yeah, well, we need new financing instruments.
Yeah.
So you know why are mortgages so expensive?
Yeah.
Why haven't we got more pension fund money in ordinary housing? They want to.
Yeah.
You know, they're really good people. The people that run these pension funds, they've really had a good look, and their ESG stuff is actually really good.
Yeah.
The ability to use it in practice is really difficult.
Yeah.
And so we have to remove those barriers and create the incentives and the long-term perspectives. And the best way to do that is through pattern books of regenerative carbon places and public-private partnerships, in my view. It sounds a bit glib put like that. It is, because, you know, it's an interview and everything. There isn't the time to do the full thing. But in a way, this is becoming a model of that with Homes England and the fantastic local authority here, Lewes District Council, getting on board with this vision to help us create something that would otherwise be, as the previous scheme showed, incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah. So I suppose, is it about taking, because I guess to get a home built or a place built, there's a lot of money that kind of gets lost in the system, I suppose, like interest rates, delays, what else would there be? Well, the cost of land if it's overinflated as well. So is that what we're saying? You kind of take out that excess that doesn't actually create the home at all, or the place.
Yeah.
And then you can bring the...
Absolutely. So here, well, let's just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to bite some of the hands that feed me in this sentence.
Yeah, because I'm not an economist, so I'm trying to get
well, no, again, I completely agree with what you were saying, and particularly the drift of it. So here's what happens.
Yeah.
So you have to buy the land.
Yeah.
And equity is really expensive,
Yeah.
right? So in property, you're looking at something like 20% internal rate of return.
Yeah.
So if you borrow 50 million, I'll just use simple maths.
Yeah.
You know, you're paying back 5 million a year. So if planning takes 5 years, that's not much cheaper than equity these days. Well, you know, maybe 12% cheaper if you're a big PLC, hence competitive advantage. So if you're using government debt, a lot cheaper if you're using pension fund money, but you'd have to de-risk the planning process. So the cost of finance to buy the land to compete with a PLC, the cost of the planning risk and the level of detail that you need, particularly in a historic town. I'm not saying that you don't need to do the detail, you do, but you know, investing more in planning authorities to have and in the quality of the policy and the context in which you're working, so you can get there quicker. Pattern books to help you reassure the investors that there is going to be a good result. Much faster, cleaner planning system, less judicial challenges and everything possible, more CPOs. All of that de-risks and makes your finance cheaper, moves faster so the time cost of money is less, less on lawyers because you're not having to negotiate all these things the whole time, more public money for with pension fund money for medium-term investment and underwriting brings the cost of finance down. And then that's huge. That just on its own is vast.
Yeah.
And then more replicable factory cut timbers into standardized construction systems with what we would say is like a hand finish on site, gives you a new construction industry, incredibly efficient and affordable, and quite a nice industry to bring young people back into.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm digressing again. But
No, that's fine.
yeah, so the economic things are kind of obvious and huge.
Yeah.
The cost of doing something like this is just mind-boggling.
Yeah. So it takes it out of the cost of the final product in a way, in the end, which is what we're saying.
Here, maybe not, just because it's a relatively high value area, and I think that the density that we've got and the quality means that it will still work.
Yeah.
In other places, it will be much harder to do that in the current system.
So maybe last question. We obviously talked about the climate crisis. We've talked about challenges for government. Are you optimistic for the future? For the Phoenix and for wider context?
Yeah, well, Michael, my business partner, is a former Greenpeace activist from one of the real early activists, incredible human being, and he has a saying which I love and is the answer to your question. So we get asked a lot, are you an optimist or a pessimist? And it would be ridiculous to say you're an optimist. If you look at the science, you just got to be real, right? You've got to go, but neither is a useful mindset.
Yeah.
What is activism.
Yeah.
So I'm neither an optimist nor a pessimist, I'm an activist.
Yeah.
So doing this is activism.
Yeah.
And that's what this podcast is about, as I understand it. And I think that's what we have to be. Place is an incredibly powerful tool. And so let's wield it to make the changes that we need. And that's activism, really.
Yeah.
It's real estate as activism.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way of also showing local people, individuals, that somebody cares. If you're like, if people have got a good place to live, and you've also given them the means to live more sustainably, then naturally they can also change their behaviours.
The touch points, the relatability of this, that's what's exciting about it. Whereas a Greenpeace campaign or a political policy, however good the communicator is, still not that relatable to an individual, particularly if you're like, excluded a bit, just socially excluded, culturally excluded. Whereas actually walking down the street in a beautiful place where people like you are invited to live, you get the privilege of designing someone's home, their energy system, how they move around, the greenery and the neighbourliness. These are incredibly powerful things. So we call that social imagination. So in our mission, we're about changing the social imagination from, we say that the actions needed to heal the climate and nature and society, when manifest in place, will make us happier and healthier and maybe even wealthier.
I think that's an absolutely beautiful way to end. Thank you very much.
No, it's been a real pleasure.
And
Thank you for answering all the difficult questions for me.
Or summarising them. Activism through place. I quite like that. That might be the title of this episode, I think. But I think that was really good.
Yeah, really enjoyable.
Yeah.